Le Nissan Kick-Split 2025 a beaucoup de plus. Apple CarPlay intégré pour jouer vos tunes préférées, des fonctions avancées de sécurité, un rendement énergétique remarquable, puis même la petite odeur de char neuf qu'on aime tant. Tout ça en plus pour moins. Le Nissan Kick-Split 2025 est le véhicule neuf le plus abordable au Québec. Achetez-le à partir de seulement 22 774 $, incluant un rabais à l'achat comptant de 2 600 $. Profitez de cette offre avantageuse chez votre concessionnaire dès maintenant. Jusqu'au 2 mars, des conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
All right, everybody, let's get to our next guest who's got quite the story to tell. Now, I don't know how many of you, we do get a lot of listeners, actually, that listen to us from Florida, right? We've got snowbirds that end up in Florida over the wintertime, and this is around the time where they head back up to Montreal. I know a lot of you just go down to Florida for vacation for a month or so or a couple of weeks. And, last week, did you see the story out of Fort Lauderdale of the massive flooding and just really chaos caused by the weather? It has led to some travel nightmares. Now let's just get the story of two planes, one company, and one nightmare of a story. We go to Nikolakaki on the line, who's got a story to tell about trying to get back to Canada. Hi, Faye. Welcome to the program.
Hi there. Thank you so much for your call.
Faye, let me just ask you, first things first, are you a snowbird? Were you just vacationing in Florida? Why were you in Florida?
I was vacationing for a week.
Okay.
I went with my friend. She has an apartment in Pompano Beach. So we decided with her two kids to take a week off and visit Florida.
Okay. And then, obviously, we have this image, Florida, sun and sunshine. I was there last month. Sunshine, beautiful weather. That's not what happened, right? Well, tell us about what Florida was hit with where you were staying last week.
Okay, so first of all, I have to apologize for my voice. I'm still trying very hard to talk because I was screaming for 2 days. Basically, the weather was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. We had a few showers, so if you ever visited Florida, you know that the weather can change. Everything was good. The day that we were supposed to leave to come back home, we were leaving Orlando, going to Pompano to pick up our stuff so we can leave from Fort Lauderdale Airport. We saw the showers, we saw the rain, but it was not bad. And that was in the evening. That was around 7. That's when the rain was a little stronger. But this is Florida, so you have to understand that there's always a tropical little storm, but the sun always comes out after. So we were not sure what was happening because we were checking the weather apps. Everything looked great. We checked with Air Transat to make sure that our flight was leaving on time. Everything was great. At 7:30 p.m., we received an email and text from Air Transat stating that the aircraft was delayed to arrive to Fort Lauderdale. But it was 7:30. The aircraft was here, and instead of 10 p.m., we were supposed to travel back home at 11:30. Perfect. No problem. We took an Uber. So that was around 8:30, 9 p.m. We took an Uber. And even the Uber person had no idea what was happening out there. There was no information. There was nothing out there. And as we were approaching Fort Lauderdale, he noticed that the highway was busy. Eventually, we understood why the highway was busy. So he was trying to get off the highway. We went through the city, and that's where we were trapped, literally with water, floating cars, and trees, palm trees. Palm trees were everywhere. And we couldn't stop. We didn't know what to do. The car went in the water very fast.
Oh, no.
The water was very strong. And the water went in the car to our waist, and it was going fast, high. So I had to yell at my friend that doesn't know how to swim and her two kids to jump out of the car and swim. And you have to understand that it was dark in the night, and people were yelling for help because they had no idea what was happening. We didn't know what we were getting hit by. We left the car. We swam to a place where we could just stand and look at the water. We didn't know where to go, and I started screaming for help because we could see some emergency vehicles farther away. And thankfully, there was a good man that stopped. He had a very big pickup truck, and I had to take the kids and swim to him. That took us in. He took us to a safe place. They took us in, and as soon as we arrived to the hotel, we called Air Transat to see what's happening because we couldn't understand what was going on at this point. The operator had no idea what we were talking about. She said that the flight was still going, that we were the only ones calling with issues. She placed us on hold, and during this hold, we started searching online to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. We found out the airport of Fort Lauderdale officially closed at 5 p.m. And you have to remember that we received an email by Air Transat at 7:30 p.m. that the aircraft delayed to arrive to Fort Lauderdale from Canada. But the aircraft never left Canada, and we found out that the aircraft never made it to the U.S. They knew the airport was closed from 5 p.m.
Wow.
And they were making updates for us to go. And it was not just us. I want you all to understand the entire flight was on their way to the airport, and they all got stuck on the highway.
So Faye, listen, I just want to, if anyone who's just tuning in, I want to recap what happened here. You got messages from Air Transat, and the messages said, your flight is happening. It might be delayed. Your flight is happening. Get to the airport. So you do what any passenger would do. You try and get to the airport, and you could have lost your life there in that
Yes.
water, right?
Yes.
Based on that.
And we had 2 kids. And for me, I did not care about me at this point. All I cared was about those 2 kids that we had with us. And we had to think fast. We had to think within seconds. And you can't misinform people when you had facts. You had a fact. You knew you couldn't fly your plane. So why didn't you cancel the flight? Because of the weather. Yeah. It's not you. It's not you as a company. It's the weather. Just cancel the flight. Let people know so we wouldn't leave, because you have to understand the problem was around Fort Lauderdale Airport. It was not all over. It was just getting bad towards this area, and then the entire place was flooded. And that was just a tip, because we were trying to get home with Air Transat the next day, and they had an accident. When they brought the aircraft, finally they brought the aircraft the next day to Miami. I'm sorry. And when they were trying to get to the gate, they clipped their wings with the Emirates aircraft. The people that came from Canada, they all came out from that gate, and they let us know that they had the accident.
Oh, my goodness.
And they told us, you're not going anywhere. At this point, we were waiting for 3 hours from Air Transat to let us know what was going on. The pilot made an announcement to all of us that don't worry, it was a decorative part of the aircraft. We can still fly home. If you don't feel safe, you can pick up your luggage and go, or stay.
My goodness.
Someone interrupted him, and after an hour or so, he made another announcement saying that the airport mechanics made a thorough investigation, and it was determined that the aircraft is totally damaged. It can't fly. They promised that they were going to give us hotel, buses, food. No food. There was nothing. Everything was closed. I want you all to understand, everything was closed.
We're continuing our conversation with Faye Nikolakaki, who last week found herself in Florida and was flying out of the Fort Lauderdale airport. And some of you may know what happened in Fort Lauderdale last week. Massive storm, major flooding. Faye just told us about how she ended up in an Uber with waist-deep water at one point. And here's the key point in her story. The Fort Lauderdale airport was closed earlier in the day, but the airline she was taking, Air Transat, never told her that. In fact, Air Transat was sending out messages saying, get to the airport. Faye is still with us. Faye, I want to get to the response you have received from Air Transat in all of this. What can you tell us about how it's been after going through this horror story with dealing with them?
There was nothing. They apologized. The pilot did. When we were leaving the third day, we managed to come home. He just made a very brief apology for the 3 days of what we went through. They gave us 2 snacks, pretzels, and a granola bar. We have never heard from them. There is no email apologizing to all these people. All these people in this flight, they were pregnant women, singers. No apology. Nothing. Like nothing ever happened.
Is there anything, Faye, you wish you could have done differently? Is there anything that you wish happened differently?
Yes. Information. They should have stopped the flight. Let us know what was happening at the airport. We're tourists. We have no idea what was happening. They should have canceled when they knew. They had a lot of time. They had hours for them to cancel. They did not. The next day, you shouldn't have given information that we can fly with a damaged aircraft. You should have made what needed for inspection and then make an announcement. They should have provided the buses they promised, hotels they promised. They should have provided the food they promised. Nothing happened. They even gave us vouchers that did not work anywhere. They were laughing at us. No information. Even on their phone, they had no idea what they were talking about. They should have done something. Anything.
Faye, you at the end of the day, you did get home. How did you get home? When did you get home?
We got home. It was Friday night. We got home around 10 or 11 p.m., I think. Mm-hmm. We got home by Air Transat because they kept promising a flight back home. They did happen. The third day finally happened. Yes. Yeah. So we have been trying from Wednesday to get home, and finally happened Friday late at night.
Faye, listen, thanks for joining us this morning, telling us your story. We have reached out to Air Transat for comment on this. Have not heard anything back from them yet. When we do, we'll let you know about it. Faye, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for everything.
That is Faye Nikolakaki. Now, listen to this. I received a text message while I was speaking with Faye. I got a text message from a listener writing me this: Elias, we were also in Fort Lauderdale in the airport fiasco. We actually made it to the car rental center. We were stuck in the car rental center because we were not allowed to enter the actual airport. Of course, the airport was closed. There was no food in the car rental section, no way of leaving because the road was flooded at that point, and the car rental company would not extend our rental at that point. Unbelievable. After 6 hours stuck with 2 kids, 5 years old, two kids under 5 years old in the car rental center, we found out one rental company that would rent us a car, at least to get us out to a hotel for a night. Started searching for rooms, drove through the flood, my goodness, to get to the hotel. 8 miles, took 2 hours. Thankfully, we're put on a flight the day after, which got canceled again. Now, I just want to point this out. this is Air Canada in this instance, right? I know Faye took Air Transat. This was affecting every airline. This listener was taking Air Canada. They continue. Luckily, I got onto a flight out of Miami. At that point, the car rental company charged us $370 US to drop off at another location. I fought the charge. I'm still fighting since there was no way of bringing the car back to the initial location since it was still closed and flooded. And here's the last line. And this, I think, echoes what Faye was saying. All this could have been avoided if Air Canada would have notified us not to go to the airport at 6 p.m. And they didn't. And the Fort Lauderdale airport, this is key, was closed earlier in the day. I think it was 5 o'clock that Faye said, where the airport announced we're closed. Yet people going to the airport weren't told about it. Unbelievable.